Here in this section, The Flourishing of Buddhism and Hinduism, the authors devote a section to Buddhism, and once again asking what are they doing, why are they doing it that way. They're giving you 1, 2, 3, 4 concise paragraphs to give you a snapshot of Buddhism. They have a really difficult task here. Buddhism is an immensely rich and complex tradition that has been around for more than 2,000 years. And how do you pack it into 4 paragraphs? Just to give perspective, if you go to the DVC library and you search for Buddhism, you will get, look at this, more than 40,000 articles, more than 15,000 newspaper articles, 15,000 reviews, more than 4,000, almost 5,000 book chapters, more than 1,000 books and ebooks, and show more. So I sympathize with their dilemma. And they've gone very logically. So this first paragraph is really the biography of the person, known as Shakyamuni Buddha. I'll explain that name, who was born with the name Siddhartha Gautama. And they explain his path in life and how he ultimately attains enlightenment at a site in India known as Bodh Gaya. So Bodh is the root word awakened, and he is the Buddha. Bodh and Buddha have the same root, the awakened one. That's the biographic paragraph, and then they talk a little bit about his teaching, the Dharma. And then they try to sort of explain the implications of that and give kind of the history of how Buddhism unfolded. It's very factually correct, but it's also dry as dust. By compressing it so much and by trying to just boil it down to facts, they kind of lose all sense of the richness of it, which is what made it so immensely influential that many scholars of religion conclude that it was the largest world religion prior to the cultural revolution of China. So I want to kind of give flesh to those bones that they gave, to give life to this set of abstract ideas and information, so that you do come out of this class knowing who was the Buddha, what was his path, what did he teach, but not just in a factual way, but in a felt way, in terms of why his teachings have had so much impact across the centuries. And so I'll start just with perhaps his most essential statement. I teach only suffering and the end of suffering. So Buddhism is really understood as a path toward the end of suffering. Buddha is teaching, why do we suffer, and what is it that we can do to liberate ourselves from suffering? And when he says that he teaches only suffering and the end of suffering, he is not offering a theistic system or a deistic system. He is not talking about gods. And this is potentially can be viewed as not a religion in the sense that we often think of the word religion. So, but it is definitely a kind of path of ultimate understanding of reality and spiritual unfolding. And the Buddha is certainly a kind of a lamp who's lighting the way toward those. So the Buddha is not a god. That's an important principle. In fact, there's a famous story handed down in Buddhism where a stranger encounters the Buddha who is walking on the road shortly after his enlightenment. And the stranger recognizes immediately that there is something remarkable, something extraordinary about this person. And this stranger says, "My friend, what are you? Are you a celestial being or a god?" "No," said the Buddha. "Well, then are you some kind of magician or wizard?" "No," said the Buddha. "Are you a man?" Interestingly, the Buddha says no. He's no longer an ordinary human. "Well, then what are you?" The Buddha replied, "I am awake." So the idea is that ordinary humans can wake up into this state of ultimate awareness. So the Buddha, not being a celestial being nor a god, was born in a specific place, again in the Ganges River Plain in northern India, and in the town of Lumbini in the north, today's Nepal, here on the edge of India and Nepal. And he was born to a noble family. So he was born to privilege, luxury, a pampered existence, highly educated. And this sculpted relief shows the birth of Siddhartha to his mother, Queen Maya. But he gives all that up. So the famous story which the textbook cites is that Siddhartha Gautama's father was told by great seers that his son would become either a great world ruler or a great enlightened being. And the father wanted him to be the great world ruler. And so he kept him in the pampered palace. But Siddhartha is sort of called, sneaks out of the palace at one night and goes out into the world. And it's sort of a dramatic story of confronting in one blow the reality of suffering, because he goes out and he sees a person who is sick. He's riding out from the palace. And this is a Chinese painting from the Tang Dynasty when Buddhism has come to China. And it's depicting this riding out to confront suffering. He confronts a sick person, a person bent over and crippled by old age, and he confronts a corpse. The absolute reality of impermanence. And this shakes him up and sets him out that he wants to discover the truth. He wants radical freedom. And he becomes a renunciate. So he literally renounces, that means give up, rejects life at the palace with the beautiful women and the good food and the gorgeous sensual pleasures. And he becomes an ascetic yogi. He becomes one of these people in this culture of heterodox spiritual searching who is seeking answers and trying new things. So he spends 6 years doing advanced yogic practices, including extreme fasting. This sculpture here is the sculpture of the emaciated Buddha. And he's emaciated because it is depicting a point in his spiritual development where he was actually living on 1 grain of rice a day. This is the ultimate in renunciation, that he will reject the body's needs. He will reject all sensual calls of the body altogether. And then he's going to conquer desire and self-indulgence by refusing his body. He actually comes to reject this extreme self-deprivation. He comes to explain is a form of subtle violence toward the self that actually breeds egotism. So he starts to develop a concept of the middle way, which is an essential concept in Buddhism. It means a whole range of meanings, but certainly it means neither repressing desire nor indulging it. And so once he has rejected the path of harsh asceticism, he resolves to meditate. He comes upon the Bodhi tree, the famous symbol of Buddhism, a great ficus tree, and he resolves to meditate there unmoving until he is totally liberated. So this sculpture is depicting the famous episode in the life of the Buddha where he's meditating under the tree. You can see the leaves here, the peepal leaf tree. He's meditating here and he is being sort of attacked at all sides by the forces of Mara, the forces of illusion and delusion, of desire and violence. And so you've got this like awesome monkey with a sword attacking him. All sorts of fears and desires are swirling around him. And the story is that he simply observed them. He simply said, Mara, I see you. He neither fought them nor got caught up in them. He simply let them be. Notice the space that the sculptor has provided around him, as if there's a kind of space of an open mind, even as the tumult of the mind takes place. And at this moment, he then touches the earth. Notice how his hand is reaching down to touch the earth. That will be very important in the art. And says, as the earth is my witness. And at this moment of touching the earth, his mind, in a sense, blooms and he awakens.